I recently visited the country of Estonia, and I think it's fair to say that, at least in Britain, we as a people don't really know all too much about this little nation. Before I arrived, all I knew about Estonia was that they have magnificent forests, they were one of the last pagan countries in Europe, they have a really great flag, and they have a long history of fighting for their independence against their much bigger neighbours. But as a folklorist, my main interest in coming to Estonia was to learn about their folklore and legends. The problem is, there isn't all that much to go on for someone that can't speak Estonian. For example, it's extremely hard to find English books of Estonian folktales, either online or in any shop in Britain. Of the books that I own, 2 of them I had to search for in bookshops in Tallinn, and this one I had to pay quite a lot of money for from a private seller in the US, and this book is long out of print. Despite this, to say that Estonia has no folklore couldn't be further from the truth. It has mountains of stories, there's over 1.5 million pages of it in the Estonian folklore archives in Tartu. But I think it's a shame that people don't know a lot about this country and its legends, because for people that can't speak Estonian, there's just no access to it. So I'm going to tell you some of the stories of Kalev and Linda, some major figures from Estonian myth, and take you to some of the sites associated with them in and around the capital city of Tallinn. England has Beowulf as its national epic, Greece has the Iliad, and Estonia has Kalevipoeg. Kalevipoeg was a giant that carried around huge boulders to throw at his enemies, and uses giant planks as a weapon. In short, the story is about Kalevipoeg's journey to Finland in search of his kidnapped mother, and while on this adventure, he purchases a sword and kills the son of the blacksmith that made it in an argument, causing the blacksmith to place a curse on this sword. Once he returns to Estonia, Kalevipoeg becomes king after beating his brothers in a stone-throwing contest, and then goes on to build towns and forts and farms the land that he rules. He's also advised by a wise hedgehog. He then journeys to the end of the earth and defeats various demons in combat, returning to Estonia when war and destruction fall upon the land. Kalevipoeg then withdraws to the forest, struggling with depression following the death of his friends and kinsmen, handing over the kingship to his brother. While crossing a river, the cursed sword from earlier, which was lost in this river at some point, attacks Kalevipoeg and cuts off his legs, and then he dies. But the god Tara brings him back and places his legless body on a white horse, which rides to the gates of the underworld, where he still guards to this day. It's an interesting sounding tale, but finding an English translation of it is no easy task. But the name Kalevipoeg translates to Kalev's son, so we don't really know the real name of this protagonist. We just know that he's the son of someone called Kalev. So, who is Kalev? This is Tallinn, the first and obvious choice for a tourist in Estonia to visit, and Toompea Hill is a site that's quite hard to miss. Yet, few visitors will know its association with Estonian mythology. Toompea is a large limestone hill in the centre of the city, and has long been associated with the rulers of Estonia. Even to this day, you'll find a number of government embassies up here, and the Estonian Parliament building. But this hill isn't just symbolic because it was and is the seat of power. Toompea is the burial mound of this Kalev figure, the father of the epic tale's protagonist. The story actually begins with Kalev. He arrives in Estonia atop an eagle, becomes king and marries a woman called Linda, the mother of Kalevipoeg, and the woman that was captured and taken to Finland. Here's a statue of her in Tallinn Airport. Remember her name, because we'll be coming back to her. Kalev dies in the second canto, and Linda cries for 7 days and nights. She carries boulders to the spot where Toompea Hill is today, using them to create his burial mound. I recently took up watercolour painting, and this is my depiction of this scene. Here Kalev lies sleeping, much like King Arthur in Britain, or Barbarossa in Germany. And there we have the origin of this hill, where you can get fantastic views of the city. If you've got a sweet tooth like me, then you'll notice that Estonian chocolate is named after this giant king, and the packaging has a very heroic aesthetic. Some of the imagery I've used in this video as well comes from the adverts that were put out by this chocolate company. Directly opposite the Estonian Parliament is the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, built by the Russians in 1900 during the period of Russification and Tsarist rule. A clear symbol of foreign power and dominance in the centre of the city's most symbolic location. This church has long been unpopular, and the independent republic strongly considered demolishing it in the interwar period. Even to this day, there's still talk of demolishing it. In the 1890s, when it was under construction, there was rumour that the Russian builders, when digging the foundations, came across an iron door deep in the rock. Inscribed in the door was a warning: "Damned be everyone who dares disturb my peace." The workers were worried, scared even, but those in charge soon got them back to work, and the church was finished in 1900. But straight away, it was hit with structural problems, such as huge cracks in the wall. Total collapse has been feared on a number of occasions, and even today, it's not uncommon to see scaffolding. So, what is the explanation here? Shoddy Russian workmanship, or an ancient king's curse? Some might say this story of the tomb and the Russian workers was made up as anti-Russian propaganda at the time. But even if that is true, it still shows the power and influence of these ancient Estonian myths and their ties to national identity and sovereignty. Next to Toompea, we can see a little park to the south down below. This is Linda's park. Remember Linda, Kalev's wife and the builder of Toompea Hill. This statue depicts Linda sitting down on a boulder that she dropped and weeps for her lost love, Kalev. In almost all depictions of Linda, you'll see her sitting on a rock or carrying a rock. The creator of this statue, August Weisenberg, was massively interested in Estonian mythology. Now, this place became a national symbol where victims of the communist deportations to Siberia were commemorated, and still are commemorated. The sign at the bottom of the statue says, "I still think of those that were taken from here. Their anguish screams to the sky." Linda cried for her husband, as many Estonians cried for their families, never to return. She's a figure of motherhood, and another example of the importance of these myths to Estonian identity. People will still leave flowers to this day at the foot of the statue. Lake Ulima is the largest of the lakes surrounding Tallinn and is the main source of the city's water supply. In the lake, I heard that there was a large boulder that's called Linda's Rock. The folklore that was attached to this rock was that it was the boulder that was carried by Linda to the grave of Kalev, and she dropped it from her apron onto the ground. She then sat on it and cried, thus creating the lake. The rock on which Linda sits in August Weisenberg's statue is this rock that's in Lake Ulima. So hopefully all of this provides non-Estonians a good introduction to some of the more famous myths of this country. Of course, it barely scratches the surface, but chances are, if you're from Britain or America or elsewhere and you do visit Estonia, you'll likely just visit Tallinn, which I definitely recommend you do because it's a beautiful city. But if you do go, now you can look out for some of these features and appreciate their mythical origins. If you'd like to learn some more about Estonian folklore and legends, then please do check out my video on 25 creatures from Estonian folklore. I'm a non-native, and the Estonians in the comments weren't shy in pointing out some of my pronunciation errors, but Estonian is a hard language, no doubt one of the main reasons that we don't have much access to their myths and stories. I think it's fascinating though, so I'm doing my best to bring it to the English-speaking audience. My travels and the films that I make are made possible by the support that I receive from my patrons, and it's these people on screen now that made this video possible. It's the best way that you can support me, and I really appreciate all those that do. Do be sure to give this a share if you enjoyed and you got this far, and I shall see you all in the next video.